Okay, hi everybody. How are you? We were talking about Turkey's most famous castles and palaces, and I was talking about Küçük Su Pavilion. And now I will continue from where I left off, okay? The Western influence on Turkish architecture reached its peak during the reign of Abdülmecit. Sultan Abdülmecit is usually known for his politics, and he was also an architect of Istanbul. During his reign, Istanbul's appearance changed radically. He demolished the Küçük Su Pavilion, placed the current stone pavilion in its stead, and in the new style used for the Dolmabahçe and Ihlamur palaces. As for the decorative aspects, both the interior and exterior display influences of Western motifs. The opulent double flight of steps that curves around the ornamental pool outside, the ceilings laden with carton pair molding, and richly painted designs, a myriad of fireplaces made of Italian marble, parquet floors with different patterns in every room, European-style antique furniture and art, and so on. Second, a stage designer at Vienna State Opera was charged with decorating the interior. While the pavilion consists of two main levels and a basement. The basement holds the kitchen, larder, and servant quarters, while the upper two floors have four rooms that open up to a central room. The rooms at the facade have two fireplaces, while the others have one each. There are so many fireplaces made of Italian marble of various colors in diverse styles that it makes Küçük Su Kasrı look like a museum of 19th century fireplaces. The elegant parquet floors have different patterns in each of the rooms, which are furnished with European-style furniture, crystal chandeliers from Bohemia, carpets woven in hereke, paintings, curtains, and furniture. Unlike the city's other palaces, Küçük Su Pavilion is not surrounded by high walls, but by cast iron railings and gates on all four sides. Well, after the establishment of the Turkish Republic, all palaces and royal lodges were repossessed by the state. The Küçük Su Pavilion began to be used as a state guest house for some years. After a restoration in 1994, the pavilion has been opened to the public. It then underwent a long period of restoration. A good is that the government proved to be a good tarikator, and the building is in splendid condition now with original furniture, and it looks brand new both inside and out. Well, there are some of the few things that you should know about Küçük Su Pavilion, and one of them is that the Küçük Su Pavilion was built for short stays only during the country excursions and hunting. So the bedrooms were not needed for Küçük Su Pavilion. When you visit it, don't be surprised that there are no bedrooms inside. Well, the pavilion appeared in the James Bond film, The World Is Not Enough. Well, there is also a cafe on the pavilion's grounds, just on the shore of the Bosphorus. You can enjoy the beautiful views of the Rumeli Fortress and Bosphorus while you drink a cup of Turkish tea or coffee, whichever you want. The staff doesn't know so many languages, so you can take a leaflet with a brief description of the pavilion at the entrance. And Küçük Su Pavilion also attracted the attention of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. He sometimes visited the pavilion to work or relax when he was in Istanbul. And Celal Bayar, an important politician in Turkey's history and the third president of Turkey, used this pavilion just like Mustafa Kemal, visiting it from time to time. Okay. Now, These are all the famous palaces in Istanbul. And there is also one more famous palace in Turkey, and it is in Ağrı. It's called İshak Paşa Sarayı, İshak Paşa Palace, okay? A very famous palace worldwide, and let's talk about it. Well, İshak Paşa Palace is more of a complex than just a mere palace. It is our second administrative campus after the Topkapı Palace in Istanbul, and the most famous of the palaces built at recent decades. The palace that was built on a hill at the side of a mountain 5 kilometers east of Doğu Beyazıt district is the last large monumental structure of the Ottoman Empire in the Lale Devri period. It is one of the most distinguished and magnificent examples of the 18th century Ottoman architecture, and it is very valuable in terms of art history as well. According to the top of the door inscription at the harem section, it was constructed in 1784. As the ground building sits on is a valley slope, it's rocky and hard. Despite the fact that it is at the center of the old Beyazıt city, its three sides, north, west, and south sides are steep and sloped. Yani buralar yokuşa bakıyor arkadaşlar. 3 yerden yokuş. There is a suitable flat area only to the east. And the entrance of the palace is on that side. Its main gate is the weakest point in that respect. The structure of the main gate is no different than those seen in the palaces built in Istanbul and elsewhere in Anatolia, and has a neat stone workmanship and carving. Today, we have very few examples of the historical Turkish palaces still surviving. One of these is the İshak Paşa Palace and Complex. İshak Paşa Palace is composed of following sections in terms of architectural style. There is an exterior facade, first and second courts, the men's quarter, selamlık, the mosque building, the soup kitchen, it's Darüziyafe, bath, rooms of harem section, hall for ceremonies and entertainment, arch gates, pantries, kilerler yani arkadaşlar, and ammunition room yani cephanelik, the mausoleum, the bakery, dungeons, and some sections from interior design. It means doors, windows, cupboards, fireplaces, soft drink cupboards, etc. Well, the characteristic of the palace is in its mixture of Ottoman, Persian, and Seljuk architectural styles. The palace was built in 1685 by the İshak Paşa of Çıldıroğulları and Çolak Abdi Paşa, and took its final form in 1784. The portal on the eastern facade of the palace, which is built with cut stones, reflects the characteristics of the Seljuk art with its reliefs and decorations. The palace is composed of 2 courts and the collection of structures positions around them. Some of the buildings of the first court are completely destroyed, and to the right, with reference to the entrance, there is the men's quarter, and behind it, the harem section. Yani önce selamlık, onun arkasında harem. At the end of these two, there is the mosque and the mausoleum. The mausoleum is built in the style of the Selçuk Kümbet, cupola in English, Selçuk Kümbet architecture. The palace section has 2 stories, 2 katlı. All of its 366 rooms are arranged on these 2 floors. Each room has a stone fireplace, and the cavities within the stone walls indicate that the building as a whole possessed a central heating system. Yes, it is the first palace that was built with a central system in Turkey. The reception hall has stone walls and floor. Its walls are decorated with couplets and verses from the Quran in the decorative examples of Turkish calligraphy art. The mausoleum in the second courtyard of the palace is built with cut stones. Its walls are decorated with geometric motifs. Çolak Abdi Pasha, İshak Pasha, and their close kin are resting at this mausoleum. The interior and exterior architectural wealth of the İshak Pasha Palace could be described forever because it's really, really beautiful. And İshak Pasha Palace stands at a desolate valley today, and the fact is that it was the subject of various legends and stories. Add to its magnificent atmosphere some color and mystery also. Okay, and this is the end of İshak Pasha Palace. Well, after İshak Pasha Palace, I would like to talk about one other palace. It is Edirne Palace, the palace that the Ottomans used before Istanbul, Constantinople, became the capital of Turkey and before Topkapı Palace. Okay, well, Edirne Palace, or formerly known as New Imperial Palace, is a former palace of the Ottoman Sultans in Edirne, mostly during the era when the city was the capital of the empire. Few of the palace buildings have survived until now, unfortunately. However, works are underway for its reconstruction. The palace was built in a hunting ground and woods, covering 74 to 86 acres of land north of the city of the west bank of Tunca River in Edirne. Construction of the palace began in 1450 during the reign of Murat II, however stopped when the Sultan died. After some time of interruption, it was completed by Mehmet the Conqueror in 1475. In the following years, the palace was continuously maintained and extended with new buildings around it during the reign of Süleyman the Magnificent, Ahmet I, Mehmet IV, Ahmet II, and Ahmet III. Well, the palace remained unused from 1718, when Ahmet III relocated his seat to Istanbul permanently, and until 1768, when Mustafa III returned to the city to spend some time. During the period, a half-century vacancy, during this vacancy period, the palace fell into a state of dilapidation. And the destruction continued by the 1752 earthquake and plus the 1776 fire. And in 1825, some parts of the palace were repaired by Mahmud II. The palace was damaged heavily when the Russian forces occupying Edirne in 1829, when they used it as a military camp. Between 1868 and 1873, many buildings of the palace complex underwent a restoration by the city governors of the time. But finally, the palace was destroyed to great extent when an ammunition depot, mühimmat deposu demek arkadaşlar, ammunition depot, an ammunition depot close to the palace was intentionally blown up on the order of Edirne governor in fear of nearing Russian forces during the Russo-Turkish War between 1877-78. And the structural elements of the ruined palace were then plundered to be used elsewhere. Okay, this is the end of my lesson now, and I'm going to talk about Edirne Palace in my next lesson, and I will see you there. And until then, take good care of yourselves, okay? Bye-bye. See you.